Welcome back to the Small Business Show, where you get to hear the journey, find the challenge, and create solutions. I'm your host, Lori Brooks, and I thank you so much for joining me today. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. This week, I have the absolute pleasure of chatting with Chris Burns, a serial entrepreneur at heart, 2 times published author, a keynote speaker, and an adjunct professor with a deep passion for digital marketing. As a coach, podcaster, and consultant, his life is a tapestry of diverse roles, including being a dedicated husband and father of 3. With over 20 years in the marketing industry, Chris has helped hundreds of businesses, including his own, to thrive by embracing digital marketing. His approach has always been about helping businesses shine in their uniqueness, steering them away from the mundane and into the spotlight. His goal with most things is to make it so easy, it's fun again. So easy, you'll have no excuses. Chris is also the co-founder of Hustle Leadership and the co-host of the Hustle Nation podcast.
Chris, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Lori, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and I'm excited to dive into your entrepreneurial journey. But before we do, I want to rewind the clock just a bit. I want to go back to the days of, say, junior high or high school. Think about a time when, say, an author, an uncle, or a mentor at school might have asked you, what it is you want to be when you grow up? Chris, what was your answer to that question back then?
Ooh, it changed a lot for me. And I would say, honestly, in those days, I didn't know what I wanted to be. But if I had to have guessed at that time, I would have told you some kind of a business owner. And the word entrepreneur wasn't quite as fun and sexy as it is now. And so I had, big visions at a young age of owning a big business someday and, being very successful. And now as I've grown up in my 40s, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
I love it. I don't think any of us really know what we want to be when we grow up.
And that's okay.
It is. It's perfect. In fact, I had lunch with my 94-year-old cousin last week, Chris.
Wow.
And she is entrepreneur, writing books, still out here doing her thing, and
Good for
still
her.
young as ever at heart. So yeah, none of us never necessarily know what it is, but we, when we grow up, what it is we want to do. But what were the steps for you that led to you recognizing that, okay, business ownership, entrepreneurship is an actual opportunity for you in life?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I think I just assumed I was going to find success at a young age. So I didn't take school half as seriously as I should, average grades at best. And it really wasn't until my senior year, late in my senior year, I started applying for college. But a lot of that had to do with the fact that as I got through more and more of high school, I started to realize my time was running out. I had to kind of figure what I wanted to study if I was even going to go to college. And my guidance counselor once said to me, I think it was a junior year, she said, why are you even bothering? You're not going to go to college. You don't need a degree with what you're going to do. And I was like, okay, I'll show you. And so I started to take like business law, and I took a small business class. I took a marketing class. And at the time, I asked my parents, I'm like, what is marketing? What did I sign up for? And that was really the catalyst for me that helped me decide kind of what I was really interested in. That was the first time school was interesting. And that's when I knew that this is really the stepping stone to becoming an entrepreneur. And I knew it would help me, and it did. I went on to study marketing in college, and it's really been a part of my life ever since. And it probably was, if I look back, the first part of becoming an entrepreneur was getting involved in that class and then taking that in college, and then kind of self-teaching myself since then, all the ins and outs of digital marketing.
Have you ever heard the phrase, sticks and stones may break your bones? When you were growing up, it's funny. You brought that phrase to mind just now, because I think it's funny how as you're growing up, people say, don't worry about the words, but they're so impactful. They can make so many changes. And those words that infect you actually spark your journey of saying, yeah, that's not how this is going to work.
Yeah, I think some people do that as a way of leadership to spark people, thinking that, oh, I'm helping them by saying this. But I
Right.
think if you look back, there are plenty of people that could have been broken by that message, could have
Mhm.
said, yeah, you're right. I won't amount to anything. I might as well just give up and quit. And so I don't know that that's the best way to handle it. But when you say that, the words, I think of tone, because if you send an email to someone and you write what you think sounds really nice, someone could interpret that and say, well, he or she doesn't like me, or he or she thinks
Mhm.
this of me, when you might say, well, thought I was conveying a regular, decent message. So you're right. I think words and tone are very important. And it's just funny how a lot of that stuff to this day is so true in marketing. And kind of that's the one thing that motivated me. So that's very unique, very interesting that you say that.
I love going back to the origin stories. It's funny to hear how things evolved and where things were sparked that sometimes we don't really eh, take the time to reflect on how things were sparked throughout our journey. So that's why I love doing this show. I enjoy hearing this story. So as you started studying marketing and really started thinking to yourself, okay, this is the direction I'm going. What do you feel like were some of the biggest hiccups and headaches that you encountered?
So when I graduated from college in 2004, there was no digital marketing programs. There was no digital marketing certificate. Literally, the only forms of digital marketing was having a website. You could run Google Ads. Facebook had just come out, so social media was not really even a thing. MySpace was not really even classified as social media. And so you had email marketing. There were very limited options. And so you couldn't study it in college. And I'd say the biggest obstacle for a lot of us who are in that category that I am in, or if you were older, is you either had to go to YouTube, which probably didn't come out until 4 or 5, and you had to teach yourself, or you had to immerse yourself later on in podcasts, which became a thing a few years later. And so it was kind of up to you to determine if you wanted to become an expert, you had to self-teach yourself. So that was an obstacle. And also, back in that era and I had my first job in 05, 06, 07, we still had to convince people that we should invest in SEO, invest in a website, invest in Google Ads. And so I found myself having to do things and then later on ask for forgiveness and say, hey, we generated 25 new customers from spending $300 on Google Ads. Do I have permission to triple or double this budget? Well, you did what? How does this work? And then all of a sudden they bought in because of their success. And so that continued to happen for about a decade. And, I think that there are probably still even some naysayers out there that say, well, why would I want to invest in TikTok, or why would I want to invest in that? When we've seen that, now a lot of folks are coming late to the party on different platforms. It's been hard to become an early adopter or convince people of that. But I think now those people who are just getting into TikTok or name any other trend say, I wish I would have done this sooner. And I have some of those same regrets with certain things in life too. But I think the biggest challenge it is and was getting people to say, okay, because at the end of the day, what's the worst that could happen? Say you invest some time into a platform, a technique, a tactic, a strategy, a budget. As long as you're not over leveraging yourself, what is the worst that can happen? You don't generate results? Big deal. Again, so long as you didn't over leverage your time or your money. If anything, the best thing is it was a learning experience. So this either A, does or does not work. And so I'm all for diving in the deep end and trying something and giving yourself an ample amount of time to determine if it works. And, amongst other things, it is being open-minded to new tech and new things that come out. And obviously the big one right now is AI. And who knows what'll happen with that. But I'm all for allowing these things to help you and help your business.
There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. And I love that you lived by that. I love that was the ethos of how you really kind of launched the journey. You weren't fearful of it. I mean, you understood there were risks that you were taking, but reality was you also knew the benefit that was going to come in the end for the different clients that you were testing and trying. And that's what it takes. It takes being willing Two, test, try. And I love that you brought up, the early adoption of the lack thereof that can hold certain practices back. I myself have dealt with the same thing throughout the years and been hesitant to do this or hesitant to do that. But I think for me, it's more, okay, is this piece the time that I want to dedicate time to? Is it a priority to dedicate the time to it? And sometimes that can create that delay in the ability to adopt. So I definitely follow you there, but I agree 100%. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. You got to test, you got to try, you got to figure it out and move forward. So what do you feel like helped you the most at that point to really say, you know what, I am going to go forward with testing things out? What was it that you feel like gave you the confidence in yourself to test those pieces for the practice or for the different clients that you were working with at that point?
I promised myself that I would be a student of the game. I know that even back then, it was rapidly changing to a certain degree, and now it's rapidly changing times 100. But I like that. I like change because I've always said if something's constantly changing and you're one of the few who is constantly learning, constantly staying on top of it, people will come to you. You'll have a disproportionate advantage. So I did that. I had a personal blog. I had a personal podcast. This was like 15 years ago. And I used my own platform to learn, to make mistakes, and made plenty of them. Make note of that. And I fell on my face. I tried to start a few little small online retail businesses. Didn't go super well over the long run, but I was able to use myself as a guinea pig so that, when I applied for a job or when I got promoted, I could say, like, I have this experience. I've done this before. I can do this for the company. And so it was one, really being a student of the game. And then number two, being a practitioner. So someone said, hey, 2010, what experience do you have as a social media manager, which was a relatively new term then? I could say, well, I've have my own business. I've done this for X business. And then I've done this for my friend. Is I wanted more and more at bats because I knew the more of it that I did, the better I would get. And I'm still at that point. I don't consider myself necessarily a graphic designer, but I do consider myself a practitioner. I do consider myself to be very good at what I do. Are there better people? Absolutely. But the difference is that being both a student of the game and a practitioner, I'm extremely well-rounded. I understand the platform from the business standpoint, from the user standpoint, from the business, the profile standpoint. And I think that's really what's important is, I've studied consumer behavior, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of what people in your audience or maybe my audience are going to want to engage with. And that's really the key, is getting to know what does the platform want and then what do the people want. And if you can make both of those things happy, you are going to find some success and you'll be able to build on that success on social media. And so it's just, you got to love what you do. And I love what I do. And I think when you are in love with both a passion, a hobby, and a career, and you are a student of the game, you are a practitioner, good things will happen.
Confidence comes from a commitment. It comes from a commitment to understanding what it is you're doing, from skill stacking through the years, which is what you were doing. You were really teaching yourself, understanding what pieces you needed to collect throughout the journey in order to make yourself having that confidence later on. So it's not something that was birthed immediately. It was something that was developed throughout a consistent commitment to the journey. Right. So thank you for sharing that. So where are you now, Chris? What are you doing today? Share all about your practice.
Oh, yeah. So I'm in Wisconsin, and I'm mostly a digital marketing coach and consultant. I've kind of moved into the sales and leadership space as well with my colleague. We have got a business called Hustle Leadership, where we work with B2B sales teams to help them create a sales culture of hustle. And then I've continued on with my digital marketing practice, where I work with individuals, both one-to-one or in group coach settings. And the goal for me with everything that I do is really to make things fun and easy. And so I recently wrote a book called Marketing So Easy, It's Fun Again. And that framework has kind of bled into or cascaded into everything that I do, even with the leadership business, which is a couple of things. Is my theory is whether we're talking about leadership, we're talking about sales, cooking, marketing, whatever, you need to have a recipe, and everybody's recipe is different. So I kind of stumbled upon this analogy a long time ago, which was that if you travel the world and you ask people for their recipe for chili, you're going to get, and I'm not kidding, probably a million variations. God forbid we debate noodles or no noodles. We go white bean chicken chili. We put spare ribs in there or skirt steak or whatever. There's literally no wrong answer. The details of the recipe are such, which is, what do you have in the proverbial pantry? Who are you cooking for? How much time you have? What utensils you have access to? What do you want the outcome to be? And based on that, you put together a personalized recipe, because if you look at tennis professionals or golf professionals, boy, they all look different. If you look at leaders in business, they all look a little bit different, and that's okay. That's just fine. And so we have to create a plan, because they all have one too. They all have a framework, and then implement that. And so the goal really within marketing specifically is to distill it down to one page, to get your strategy on one page, to make it so simple and so easy it's fun. And then, by the way, it's always fun when you're generating results. So I've just found that over the years, we as entrepreneurs, including myself, have made things too complicated. And when they get complicated, they feel burdensome and stressful. And when that happens, we tend not to take a lot of action. We spend too much time thinking and fearing the outcome or what people might say, or, fear of failure. And all of a sudden we just get stuck, or we get ourselves in this burnout mode working in the business and stuck in the hamster wheel. And that's what leads to the health issues that you and I talked about prior to this show. I've been there as well, as I know you have. And so really, I've kind of dedicated my life and my services to educating, empowering, and inspiring people. And that's what I do through sales, leadership, and marketing.
I absolutely adore it. Chris, you are pulling people out of what I call wino mode, where they're working in and out on their business, and moving them into boss mode, where they're building out operations to support their success by making marketing so easy it's fun again. I love that. Everybody, you have to go grab a copy of this book if you haven't already. Please do so. We'll be sure to include a link on the show notes page to that. Chris, if you had the opportunity to, say, go back in time 10, 15, 20 years and tell yourself one thing, I think that one thing would be?
If you gave me enough time, I could probably give you a lot of different answers, and I would probably want to tell myself a lot of things. But one would be, and I've never really had a lot of fear to do many things except start my own YouTube channel and personal brand, because, now in my older days, I want to do more paid public speaking. I want to be on stage. I'd like to be a, best-selling author. And so some of the things I wish I would have done was start and launch a personal brand. And I don't just mean I'm going to post videos on YouTube. I wish I would have just started doing something. And I would tell myself that, look, for the most part, nobody even cares what you're doing. So the fact to think that I'm selfish enough to think that maybe people are going to judge me and they're going to call me stupid or think my videos are dumb. People really don't give a crap in the first place. So why would they even stop to judge me? Just do it. Just start doing it, because if you don't now, Chris, you're going to look back in 10, 15, 20 years and say, oh, well, that would have been really much easier to launch that book and become a best-selling author if you had a platform to sell it on. And so don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared. And as I tell people now, and I'm not trying to steal this from Nike, but just do it. Just start taking massive action. And here's the thing, and I read this book probably 10 years too late, which is called Ready, Fire, Aim. And the title of the book says it all, but it's start shooting and shooting the arrows, and you can start honing in and aiming better and better the more comfortable and confident you are. And so people say you can't fly the ship before it's built, or the plane. I think you can. I think it's okay so long as you're 50, 75% ready. But the more at-bats you get, the better you're going to get. And if you don't start those at-bats now, you are going to wish that you did. And so that would probably be the start of the conversation without having more time to prepare for that question.
If in fact you had a magic wand and had the ability to change something, anything at all in the marketing industry, what do you feel like you would want to go ahead and why do you feel like you might want to choose?
In the marketing industry, I know that if I had a magic wand, if we took the marketing part out, I would want to help more businesses because I've seen a lot of businesses struggle in marketing. And this has been my goal, but I can't wave a magic wand because not everybody wants the help. Not everybody needs the help. And even if I could, there are some people who can't be helped because they can't get out of their own way. So in marketing, I would make marketing easy for everyone if I could. Now I say that I can't, even though I've written a book about it, and the reason being is that you have to have the right mindset to be helped. I've taken plenty of air quote horses to water, but not all the horses have drank the water. You get my drift. I can tell by your face. And that has been one part of marketing that's always been frustrating for me is that my job as a coach, consultant, employee, whatever it is to do a couple things. It's my job to be your leader, to give you the best advice possible, to help you help your business. And unfortunately, there are some people who have blinders on. There are some people like me that have been a little too arrogant at times, or maybe they're just not ready yet because they haven't read that right book. They haven't had a hard talk with their spouse or their friend or their family member. And so my goal would just be, my wish would be to make it easier because I've found, not for all businesses, but for me and some of my clients, is that marketing can be easy. It doesn't have to be expensive, difficult, or time consuming to be effective. And if we just distill it down to a couple of things and we focus on the things that generate results and stop doing the things that don't generate results, this can actually be so easy. I hate to say that it's fun again because you've heard me say this already, but it can almost seem like stupidly easy, stupidly fun. You're like, oh yeah, I knew that. I know that you know that, but you just never had anyone to tell you, like, just do these 3 things, Chris. Just do these 3 things and you will start to generate results slowly but surely. And of course, being patient. That's part of it. Is I would help everyone become more patient because results don't happen overnight. So it's kind of like Wish 1.2 to 1.1. You got to have some patience with it because I think any successful business owner knows, or leader, that Rome wasn't built in a day. And even the people who look like they've had overnight success, maybe they had it, but it was only after 15 years of doing something.
It's only after X amount of years of putting in that effort, of really doing the skills stacking, of putting yourself in a position, of having the confidence to put those couple of key pieces to move forward in the business. So, Chris, you've been outstanding. I thank you so much for joining me today. Please, share the best way for our viewers to find you.
Yeah, so I am everywhere. I try to be very easily accessible and easy to find. One of my favorite social media platforms, as we talked about, is Alignable. So I'm there. Believe it or not, it's still an active, thriving platform. I'm also on LinkedIn. So it's /Chris B. Burns. There's 2 B's in the middle. I also have a personal website, which is inchrisburns.com. You check out my podcast at hustlenationpodcast.com. It's on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. So I'm all over the place, and I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out, book some time with me. Hopefully I can be of service to you.
Excellent. Well, I thank you again for sharing your journey, for joining me today.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.